Friday, and we'll be having conversations as we continue. Now we want to switch our conversations a little bit. We want to talk about the importance of lubrication for all moving parts. Whether it's in the body, the joints need, lubricants. Whether it's machinery, they all need someone, in the moving part, in the city.
And the story.
It's important. Now, when you have all this machinery, whether you're thinking about a bicycle, into motorbike, even mkokoteni, vehicles, tractors, aeroplanes, ships, all of them need to have moving parts lubricated, and this is where lubricants come in. Now, what is it about the quality of lubricants? Do we actually understand? Sometimes you see those things written, I don't know, WD
40. I don't know why it's not 50 or 60, it's just 40.
Specifically 40.
And it has remained 40.
This one is synthetic, this one is not.
Synthetic, and then now they've confused you completely.
Totally. And they tell you, use this one is better for your engine.
Yes.
This one is not good for your engine. What do you mean?
Okay, so
what do you mean?
You actually want to ask them, the engine has told you this. Say yes. Yes.
And then when you say lubricants, what exactly do we mean? Do we mean engine oil? Do we mean brake fluid? Do we mean grease? Do we mean all of them?
All of them together.
Together. Yeah. We have an expert who's joining us for this conversation. His name is Mohamed Baraka. Mohamed is the chairman of the Lubricant Task Force at the Petroleum Institute of East Africa. He has been in the oil industry for many years. He joined the industry in 1975, working as a chemist at the Caltex labs. In 1978, he went to the technical service marketing, has been in many positions, including a product engineer, marketing manager, general manager, a country manager for Caltex Tanzania. He's basically been around. Mohamed, karibu sana.
Asante.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. That's the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes.
Make yourself comfortable.
Yes.
It is not well lubricated. You may hear a bit of squeaking here and there. Don't judge us too harshly.
It's an opportunity for me.
I'm sure you hear all these sounds all the time. Like,
there is.
In a need grease, in a need WD, whatever.
Yeah.
But to welcome you to the show, City Muga has the proverb.
Yeah.
Yes. Our proverbs for the whole of this week, our week ending tomorrow, are from the Republic of Congo Brazzaville. A pretty basket does not prevent worries.
A pretty basket does not prevent worries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Mohamed, what do you think the Congo Brazzaville people were talking about?
It's very difficult to comprehend. Perhaps it depends on what the basket does in the society. But I believe if it's pretty, it must be carrying good things. Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't be presenting worries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now in the proverb, they say, a pretty basket does not do what, City?
Does not prevent worries.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have a pretty basket, doesn't mean you're not going to worry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
You have a different perspective now. This basket is pretty.
Perhaps as we say in Kiswahili or in Kenya, is that to be wealthy or to be with a lot of material does not give you happiness or does not stop you worrying about things.
Money does not take away worries. Money does not guarantee happiness or health.
Yeah.
Okay, a good one. Now, teach us about lubricants. Like I said, we hear lubricants, there are too many things. What are lubricants?
Yeah. Lubricants are fluids generally which reduce friction between moving parts. And as we say, however finely a surface is polished, it has ridges and valleys. And when you want to move them over each other, they will interlock into each other and they can't move, and that is what is called friction. So you need to introduce a fluid in between that separates the moving parts so that they can move easily. So that is what a lubricant basically is. So you have lubricants for various applications. You have lubricants for engines, you have lubricants for transmissions, you have lubricants for differentials, you have lubricants for wheel bearings, you have lubricants for power steering, There are very many, and of course, nearly every industry or every operation needs a lubricant. Yeah.
Are all lubricants oil-based or petroleum-based?
More than 90% of the lubricants are petroleum-based. There are a few which are based on synthetic material. There are some which are also based on solid materials like graphite or molybdenum disulfide.
Molybdenum?
Yeah.
Disulfide.
Yeah.
Maske yondo.
Disulfide.
Disulfide.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in this country,
Yeah.
we of course have very many machines
Yes.
that then require lubricants.
Yes.
We have very many brands in the market that
Yes.
require lubricants.
Yes.
The question is, are there lubricants that are manufactured in country?
Yes. There are a lot of lubricants. I think about 80% of the lubricants, 70 to 80% of the lubricants we use in Kenya are locally manufactured.
And what does manufacture mean?
Manufacture means that you have the material that actually is the bulk of the lubricant. It's called a base oil. And this is obtained from fractional, the distillation, vacuum distillation of crude oil. So you get material which you call base oil. That material is heavy. It presents the thickness of the oil you want, but its service is reduced because of its inability to withstand various conditions under the operation. So you add in additives, you blend them, you mix them with the additives in predetermined proportions to give you the lubricant you want. So you have what you call
like
the additives and the base oils. So the base oils are the base, and the additives are the chemicals that enhance the performance of the base oil.
So it's just like assembly. It's like a motor vehicle assembly plant in Kenya. All the parts come, you're just putting them together.
Exactly, yes.
So even when we say that we have lubricants that are locally manufactured,
Yes.
that's exactly the same thing we're saying.
Yes.
That all the parts
Yeah,
come,
Yeah.
all we are just doing is mixing them here.
yes.
Okay. Do they attract tax?
Yeah,
Very
the raw materials for mixing attract a tax level of about 10% on the base oil and 10% on the additives. There are other taxes that, of course, go with it, like railway development levy, IDF fees, and so on. So they have that level of 10% duty. But when you come to finished lubricants, the duty rate ranges between 25 and 35%.
Why is it important to have? Why are they important to use?
Yeah, lubricants. The lubricants is an essential part of our life because we move, we have machines, and they move and they need to be lubricated and preserved. So that's why they are important for our life. Because without those machines, our life will be very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps if we were in Stone Age, we wouldn't need them much.
Indeed.
Yeah.
In terms of what's in use in the market, do we find that the majority of them, I mean, talks about, mixing here, but
Yeah.
do we find that the parts that make up this one product that you will use for whatever parts of a machine, and, I guess sometimes the assumption is that it's just for vehicles,
Yes.
motor vehicles, but there are other machines that use them as well.
Yes.
But do we find that for the most part, most of these are coming outside of from outside of the country? Is Kenya, for example, importing the majority of these products that are used here?
Yeah, well, the raw material we import, but
Yes.
we also import finished lubricants. And it's not necessarily that we can't make them locally. We make exactly the same. We have also multinational companies here who make to the same standards that they would make in Europe, in Asia, and so on. So we actually make lubricants as good quality as anywhere else in the world.
What's the consumption percentage, though? What are you consuming in terms of what is made by multinational or brought from outside compared to what is then mixed here, as it were?
Well, I think what is mixed here would account for about between 70 and 80%, and 20 to 30% would be imported.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're actually not doing so badly.
Well, if you look at it back, there was a time we were actually producing almost 100% of our own requirement here. But with the liberalization, we have slid to a level where we are getting in a lot of imported lubricants.
So the local players are losing market share.
The local players are losing market share. Local players are also losing some of their brand values because some of the lubricants that are imported are of low quality, and sometimes they are used for counterfeiting. So that is another danger of those lubricants.
Okay.
And as I said, the local lubricants attract a duty of about 10%, imported at 35%. But you will find a lot of the imported lubricants that are in the market, they sell at about the same price or below local lubricants, which is an indication that those lubricants have come in without the taxman getting his share on them.
Okay.
Yep.
So then, as it is, the majority of those which are purchased and used in the country are actually local industry products.
They are local industry product.
But there's a problem.
Yes.
What's the problem?
The problem is, first, we need to produce more locally to create employment. When you import lubricants, say from Dubai or India, you send the job to those areas. The second thing is that it creates, of course, not only in the manufacture itself, but the supply chain, the packaging manufacturer, the labor manufacturer, the transport, they all benefit from local manufacture. And as I said, generally, for the credible manufacturers, the quality of the lubricants made here are perhaps better quality than imported lubricants. Yes.
Is there a case then for looking at what could happen in the local industry if we're saying that 70% of what is consumed as a product in Kenya is actually locally produced? Is there a case for getting to the point whereby everything that is used in Kenya, for example, is locally produced, and then looking at a situation whereby a surplus of that production then is used in terms of export, whether it starts at a regional level and then goes to a continental level and such? Is there a case to be made for that?
There is a big case to be made for it because well, perhaps if I go back to the history, when I joined the industry, we used to export 70% of our local production. And we used to export to as far north as Hodeidah in Yemen. We used to export as far down to Zambia, Congo, Ethiopia, and so on. So it was a big industry and created a big employment. It also creates value because when you export, you create value, you get a profit which it comes in, you create the dollars we actually desperately need now. So there is a big case for us to do it because, look, we have unemployment in this country. If some of the restrictions or the impediments that are on the lubricants are removed today, we instantly would create almost 2,000 jobs for our youth. Because we have a lot of manufacturing plants which are operating below 50% capacity, and that is only during the day. So they can actually operate 24 hours if there was demand. Now, the other thing is that the lubricants are actually bulk commodities. So if you have a lot of export, a lot of production here, you can reduce your freight on the raw materials that you bring in, and that will lower the cost, not only for the people here, but also for the export market.
So why is it that this already existent local manufacturers who have the capacity to produce more and meet the entire market need in Kenya and still export, why are they operating at below capacity?
Well, because their production costs here are very high. As I said, that the economies of their scale is low.
The production cost is high. And the elements in the production cost minus the duties, what else?
Mainly the production cost that is relatively higher to other major manufacturing destinations. I mean, our electricity cost is high, which makes our packages cost high. Our quantity of manufacture is small. For many years, we have not modernized these plants because they don't have the capacity. You can actually modernize and automate some of the operations in the plant, therefore increasing their production further. So those have not been addressed because of the lack of the volume that you need.
I want to ask this question out of ignorance. When you say production costs, break it down. What do you mean?
Well, as production costs, what goes into the product, I say you have the additives.
Okay.
You have the base oils, you have the plastic packages, you have the labor, and you have the labels. So all of they go in to make the finished product. So for the base oil, it comes in most cases in bulk township, and it makes a difference if you're bringing in 10,000 tons of bulk than when you are bringing in, say, 30,000 tons. The freight cost goes down. Even the supplier also gives you a better discount on a higher volume. So overall, that cost will come down. Now, if you're using a lot of additives, a lot of the additives we bring in today are brought in drums. You can actually bring them in bulk if you have the demand. You can bring it in bulk in a township, or you can bring it in bulk in bigger containers. Again, that will reduce the cost of production. Now, coming to the plastic manufacturer, the packaging manufacturers, they also depend on volume because the operation is energy intensive, and of course when you hit the mold, you want to produce thousands of them in order to spread the cost of heating over a larger quantity. We do very small batches, which makes them more expensive, and that goes for everything else.
What would you like to see to improve the situation?
Well,
as the PIEA task force on lubricants,
one of the things that we have been agitating that we should actually remove the duty, 10% duty that is imposed on the raw materials. Because if that can reduce our cost by 10%, when it will reduce the amount of smuggling that is going on, because there will not be an incentive to smuggle, because the production cost here would be the same as the production cost in Dubai, so nobody will see the incentive for it. It will lower the cost for use of lubricants, and a lot of people prefer to buy lower quality lubricants because they are cheaper, and higher quality products become more expensive because the duties are percentage over the cost of the product. So the higher the quality, the higher the taxes on it, and therefore the higher the price of the finished product. And of course, low quality oils are a big disaster in this country. They're destroying equipment, they're destroying life, they're destroying environment.
Number two. So that is the main thing. Remove the 10% duty on raw. Excuse me, and it would be at par.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. It is cheaper to import from Egypt because Egypt don't charge duty on their raw material. Kenyan manufacturers charge duty. So you can actually bring duty, and when you bring it from Egypt, it's under COMESA, so it doesn't attract duty. So an importer from Egypt brings in the product without paying any taxes. And local manufacturer pays 10% taxes. That disadvantages.
What was the wisdom of having the finished product coming duty-free?
Finished product doesn't come duty-free.
Oh, okay. It's a COMESA region.
Yeah, it's a COMESA region. Yeah, so under COMESA,
so they're getting the preferential treatment because this is coming from Egypt, which is under COMESA. It gets into the market.
Yeah, and fair trade rules, trade requires that if Egyptians can import into Kenya, we should be able also to export to Egypt. Now, we are disadvantaged already. An Egyptian can export into Kenya. Kenyan cannot export to Egypt.
Because of our production costs.
Yeah.
So then there's another case then, because what we're talking about now is regional trade and business then being hampered.
Yes.
For Kenya's benefit.
Yes.
Because of the fact that input costs are so high.
Yeah.
Raw material costs are so high.
Yeah.
What conversations are being had? Because I know there are conversations that are being had.
Yes.
Because essentially, the cost of raw material is then a barrier to then the participation of Kenya in regional trade. Yes. Nobody will trade with you because the cost of the finished product is too high.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the only thing that precludes you from joining into this big boys club of regional trade.
Yeah.
So what conversations are being had to essentially lower this across board? It's the same conversation that's being had in the agricultural circles. We cannot take your this, that, or the other thing because it's too expensive.
Yes, yes.
So why not, if the pass to get into the club is to have lowered the cost of raw material, why not lower the cost?
Well, we made presentations to the government on the issue of lowering the taxes, and I think the local, our own ministry is convinced that we actually need to reduce the duties, but we've got to get similar presentations from Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, who are also making lubricants, to put in that request so that it can be done as a regional initiative. Because if it's done on Kenyan basis only, then you have a problem, because then you are bringing in the products outside the agreed East Africa Community tariffs, and therefore that product will be treated as being coming from a foreign country. I'll give you an example. This year, the government gave duty waiver to people who want to manufacture product and export. But when that duty waiver, our members of the East African Community learned about it, they imposed 35% duty on our finished product. So it actually worked against us.
So the 10% is actually not even a Kenyan issue.
No, it's an East Africa Community
It's an
issue.
East Africa Community common external tariff.
Yeah.
So this needs to be lobbied at East Africa level.
Yes.
Have you done that? Have you gone to the
We've
East
done
Africa
it, and I
Legislative
think this
Assembly?
time we have also done it, and we got a consensus from both our counterparts in Tanzania and Uganda, and of course Rwanda, who feel the same thing, that we need to up the local production, who are making similar presentations, and we hope this time around it will be done, and done on a regional basis.
Mohamed, let's take a break.
Yes.
When we come back, we'll continue on this. And I think it would be good for you to paint a picture of the impact of the local manufacturers in the economy, in terms of everything. You know, it started from employment, into the injection into the economy, into the safeguarding the safety of the machines and everything that you have. Maybe we need to start looking at it from why should we protect these people when you can get something cheaper coming from Egypt? Why should we really bother about these Kenyans? You know, you'll give us that impact. It's 9:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Mohamed Baraka is the chairman of the Lubricant Task Force at the Petroleum Institute of East Africa. He's here to talk about the importance of lubricants and the importance of protecting the local lubricant manufacturing industry. What needs to be done for that?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Mohamed Baraka is the chairman of the Lubricant Task Force at the Petroleum Institute of East Africa. This is, of course, the lobby of the petroleum companies, from oil marketing companies and others, like lubricant dealers who are in the country, looking at how best to advance the case and the cause of the industry. Today, we are talking about lubricants. We know that there are very many lubricants in the market, and Mohamed has even educated us, you know, from engine oil to coolant to steering oil to grease to looking at the various, all other parts that need to be lubricated. Very many. Now, the thing is that there are local manufacturing companies that have been here for years. Initially, they almost had 100% market share. In fact, local manufacturers of lubricants were exporting as far as Yemen, as you've told us. Yes. But now, only 70% of what is consumed locally is actually done locally. There's more and more importation. And some of the big issues that you have is because of a 10% duty that's East Africa-wide tariff that's imposed by East African countries on raw materials coming to make the lubricants. Now it makes the other things happen. One, counterfeiting now happens. 2, tax evasion happens because people are bringing in raw material without paying duty, and then they produce their lubricant. They take it to the market. It's going to be cheaper. We have a taxation problem. And this is what the task force has been doing at PIA, lobbying to have government see the sense of waiving this 10% duty. What's the impact of the oil marketing companies, not the lubricant manufacturers, to these economies of the East African community? Start with Kenya, for example.
Yes.
When you say, 70% of our production is consumed locally, this and the other, how many companies are we talking about? How many people do they employ? What kind of volumes are we talking about?
Well, the total volume would be something like 70 million liters, which is locally consumed per year. Mm-hmm. And of course, we export something between 20 and 30 million to the surrounding countries. So our local production is about 100 million. Mm-hmm. We could easily double that production. Mm-hmm. And it has a lot of advantages. As I mentioned, it gives us the economies of scale. Mm-hmm. And of course, it brings in value and creates employment. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the major benefits. The other benefit is that people have access to quality lubricants. So long as we get our quality standards right, we would be able to assure our people the quality of the lubricants they are using. That's the biggest problem we have in this country, that there is a lot of low quality lubricants. A lot of them are counterfeited, and they are causing a lot of destruction to equipment. That lubricants are chemicals, and especially used lubricants. They potentially can cause cancer with the exposure to the skin and kidney and organ problems if they are dissolved in the body. So it is very important that we emphasize on not only the production of high quality lubricants, but also the management of the waste that it generates. And that can also be very well managed if we had all the lubricants that are being used here, or most of them being locally produced. We can be able to enforce some standards of, say, used oil, waste oil management with the local manufacturers. Because if someone sends in lubricants from Dubai, his liability is ended. But if I make it locally and the government tells me that you must have a process of trying to recover the used oil so that you don't damage the environment, that I can do.
And they can track you.
They can track me, and they can tell me your license. If you don't do this, your license is
can be
revoked. Yeah.
How would you know, though, if you were dealing with a counterfeit product?
Yeah.
It seems like you would only get this information after the fact. If you've used it in your vehicle, for example, and something goes bonkers, that's when you would know that this thing could have had a problem. But there's no pre-trace, or there's no test that you can do or check. Because if you're going to buy something for your car, you drive into the filling station, you're going to buy it and put it in your car. You're not really asking the attendant, how do I know if this is the real stuff or not?
Yeah, that's a very important point. It's very difficult to tell a fake lubricant from a proper lubricant. What I encourage people to normally do is, first of all, be sure that the supplier, they always know the people who are running the shops, people who actually deal with the genuine products. Secondly, you must check the seal of the package. Third, you can smell it. Fourth, because when you smell it, it rather smell diesel or some burnt smell of the used oil. And fourth, when you empty the package, you look at the bottom of the package. If it has a layer of black, then you know that this lubricant was made from recycled material.
Where?
Yeah, so those are some of the things that you can check on. And of course, what is worrying in this country, and this is what is actually causing a lot of accidents on our roads, is the brake fluid. First of all, a lot of the brake fluids are low quality, but what is very worrying is that people are packing water in packages of some of the leading brands and selling it as a brake fluid, and that actually is death.
Water.
Margie. You can take, for example, water's boiling point is less than 100 degrees, and brake fluid with meeting dot 4 should have a boiling point of 230 degrees. And the reason why you need a high boiling point is that when you apply emergency brakes, the brake fluid becomes very hot. And if the brake fluid is of low boiling point, it will evaporate and form a vapor lock. So when you slam on the brake and it forms a vapor lock, the vehicle goes free. And it's typical of the accidents you hear. Matatu was trying to overtake a lorry, and then the new vehicle coming from the other side crashed in it. So you wonder, why didn't the guy apply brakes? But the problem is that the guy is already dead. He can't tell you my brake failed because of vapor lock.
Yeah.
Now, when the police come and check the brakes, that vapor has collapsed because the brake has cooled.
So the brake is now working.
The brake is now working. So the police said the brake is right. Why didn't this guy just apply the brake? So it's very bad, because if you take, for example, water which is boiling at 100 degrees, you put in the brake, it wouldn't go very far to cause an accident. It can cause it very quick.
When you say that they are selling water, is it that they are mixing water with the brake fluid, or they are actually just putting...
Well, you can
water?
actually put plain water. You can mix it with the brake fluid. Brake fluid is made from glycols, which are very miscible products with the water. So even if you mix it, you wouldn't. And that's the big problem, because if you took plain water and used it for top-up on your brake system, you wouldn't know that it was water, because it would just mix with the brake fluid. So you see it's all right. But later you'll see the brake malfunctioning.
Now, Mohamed.
Yeah.
You know, most of the decisions that are made on lubricants are not made by the motorist or the driver.
Yes.
They're made by the mechanic.
Yeah.
Because you take your car to the mechanic, and then they tell you, so we added brake fluid, we added this coolant, we added this and the other, and sasa gari iko sawa.
Yeah.
So, is it that the mechanics do not know how to check the quality, or the mechanics are just going for what's cheaper in the market?
A lot of mechanics know the quality, and even a lot of them also know that some of the brake fluid they are putting in is counterfeit. They can actually tell by opening, by smelling, and looking at the evaporation of the brake fluid. They can know that this is brake fluid or this is counterfeit water. But you see, there are incentives. If, for example, I was being told by one of the stockists that the brake fluid that they get made in Nairobi from the Juakali, using one of the popular brands, sells for 150 shillings. And the actual brand sells for 350. So there is a delta of 200 shillings that you're going to make by cheating.
By cheating.
So people do it because they want to make money. And it's very bad, because you actually selling deaths to your own customer. You always want your customer to come back.
Sure.
If you're going to kill him, he's not going to come back to buy.
Speaking of another avenue for death, and means horror stories that we hear, and then when you talk about the discarding of these lubricants when you've gone for an oil change, for example, and what happens, it is said that there are people who come and line up at some mechanic shops or whatever shops to get this old oil forever that it has been changed, and they use it for cooking because it fries fish in a way that nobody would ever understand, or it fries chips in an absolutely wonderful way. But this is a recipe for disaster, and it's being done today. People are consuming food that has been fried with changed oil from vehicles.
No, in particular, it's actually transformer oil. Transformer oil is light, like cooking oil, and it fries chips very well. So you look at it and say, nice and dry chips. But later you'll get stomach cancer from it. And that could explain why we have an explosion of cancers in this country. People are taking transformer oil, taking oil. The used oil they go and put it in a container, precipitate the black stuff in it, and filter it, and put it in packages and sell it back to you.
For what?
As an engine oil.
You use it back in your car?
Yeah, we call it recycled base oil.
And does that work? And is it acceptable?
It does not work. It can work because it was a lubricant in anyway. But there is a danger when the product itself does not meet any quality. It's the additives that were put in are already used up. So it doesn't have those additives then. The other thing is it's mixed with things like brake fluid, glycols, which when you heat up with the oil, it coagulates. So when you use that oil, after a very short time, the oil thickens and the engine can seize. It's okay if you knew the oil was used oil, then you can take that precaution. But suppose you took it in a package of a high quality oil user who you have confidence that I go 10,000 kilometers with this oil, no problem. And here, this oil cannot go 2,000 kilometers. It has calculated, it causes the engine to seize, it causes the engine to wear. Then, as I said, that they also have dangers of contact, because when you heat oil in the engine, it produces what you call polycyclic materials, which are carcinogenic. They can cause cancer. So even handling that product is dangerous. And that's why at the beginning I said we must emphasize on the quality of the use of the oils we use, so that we don't use oil frequently. A good quality oil will give you a very wide mileage. Therefore, you use less, you dump less in the soil, and you, of course, save the environment. But these recycled oils, you use them so frequently. So that is the danger that we have. And
But doesn't it seem,
we need to have a proper management of the used oil we produce. Essentially, importation of recycled base oils, and it's become a common thing.
You mean we actually import recycled base oils?
Yeah, we import recycled base oil.
Why?
Well, that's what I keep, we've been arguing of...
Counterfeit.
we have already made a standard for Kenya Bureau of Standards to try to stop this importation of recycled base oil, but it still comes in. And it's very bad, because you're basically importing used oil, trying to help someone to clean his environment, and coming and dumping it in your environment and putting at risk your own people. So this is a thing that we have all lobbied, we are trying to lobby NEMA to address. KEPS has addressed it, has come up with a standard.
Is it packaged as used oil, or is it packaged in this?
As in, do you know
it comes in as the normal base oil, but most of the importers will say recycled base oil. And of course, you can't depend on KEPS to check everything.
Actually,
yeah. So it is required, and it is part of what the international community agreed. It could classify these materials as hazardous, and they say it's under the Basel Convention.
Okay, can I ask a question? From these countries where this recycled base oil is coming from, would they use it?
They don't use it, because this, basically, if you look at the recovery,
this is dumping.
Your recovery of the used oil is only about 15%. So if the product was very good, it can be used at its source, isn't it?
Yes.
So why are they exporting it? Because they are bringing it, they are taking it out of their clean environment, deserts, and bringing it into
They're dumping
our
it
environment.
into these other
Dumping it
markets.
here.
Yeah, and of course, with our greed for profit, the recycled base oil is about half the price of virgin base oil. So that is the center, and that's the beginning of counterfeiting, because if that product was not available, basically the base oil cost for everybody is about the same. So there would be no incentive for counterfeiting. And it is very important we address. And that's why I said we must have proper rules to manage not only the recycled oils, and we must also make rules to make sure that we do not import products that are going to harm our environment and harm our people. That is a responsibility of our government, any government, that you must always protect your people.
We have several institutions, Mohamed, that should take care of the consumer.
Yes.
Start at the Kenya Bureau, right, at the point of importation.
Yes.
Whether they are doing the pre-export verification or verification at point of entry.
Yeah.
And then in the market, we have the regulator, IPRA, which should also just be doing the spot checks and checking that what is in the market is what is right. You have lobbies of the right industry players, such as the Petroleum Institute of East Africa, and yet we're seeing all these things happening. Where are the loopholes?
The loopholes, well, first of all, the lubricant industry is not regulated, and we've been...
Please repeat that again.
It's not regulated.
The lubricant industry is
so it's not under IPRA.
It's not under IPRA. There are regulations that were made that need to be approved so that the IPRA can take responsibility for regulating. And this is what we have been lobbying for the last 10 years. That's why I told you the task force has been in for 10 years. We have not got an answer to it. Because without that regulation, that is where we are having this...
so there's no body to actually go to the market and say
don't do this or don't do the other.
And if I went and brought in products that is bad and people who knew it is
There's
bad,
nobody to
I'll
stop
change
you.
my name.
Yeah.
I don't call myself Mohamed Baraka, I call myself Visa. So,
really. I mean, something that clearly is hazardous. Clearly,
Yes.
you don't need to be have a great deal of knowledge on this subject.
yeah,
For it to have been proliferated for this long,
yeah.
clearly there are people who have ensured or who work day and night to ensure that partly that legislation or whatever it is that you want to put in place to regulate it does not happen.
Yeah.
Because 10 years down the line and nothing has happened.
Well, we formed we as members of the technical committee of Kenya Bureau of Standards came up with a standard for base oils to be imported, and if you actually test the base oil very well, you will not allow these base oils to come in. But there are a lot of base oils under various pretexts. Oh, I'm going to manufacture for export. It doesn't have to be tested and so on. They have all those excuses they use and they bring in the recycled base oil. So it is not only KEBS. We need KEBS to enforce that rule. We need NEMA to make it illegal to import recycled product. If you bring in recycled product, you should actually go to jail. And that is in line with the Basel Convention that prohibits transboundary movement of hazardous material. We need KRA. If they see someone with an IDF saying that they want to bring in recycled base oil, they tell them, sorry, this is not accepted. So everything has got to be done by everybody. And people should also try to be careful to shun products made from recycled base oils and so on. So there is everybody. You can't have only one organization to take care of it. We need EPRA to come up and regulate the lubricants industry and tell the people who they are licensing very clearly. In Kenya, we don't want to use recycled base oil. And that is very important because when we are talking about even export, you want to make quality products. That's what you can export. If you are making rubbish here and trying to export, you are also spoiling the name of Kenya.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's a very serious problem.
It's possible to say then that those who may be silently or overtly fighting the management and regulation of this industry, because they could be the same ones who are benefiting from bringing in these counterfeit, recycled, etc., etc.
I don't doubt it. Of course, for my fight against them, they don't like me much. But the point is, they make money out of it.
Yeah.
Good money. In Kenya, we love money. I know everybody loves money, but Kenya, we love money for whatever, how it comes. So we bring in, knowing very well, and can you imagine, you bring in recycled base oil, you make product, which you know that people might not buy the finished product.
Yeah.
You go and take the brand of the multinational, you take its package, fill in that material, and pass it out as a brand of this multinational. And that goes to damage the engine.
Aye.
Now, of course, you go back to the brand owner and say, your oil has damaged the engine. He says, give me a sample. He checks it's not his oil. So you are left there, you as the user.
Yeah.
The reputation of that brand owner is also being eroded because people are saying, you can't trust the oil from Synergy, you can't trust the oil from these guys because sometimes it's recycled. So I have that problem even in the market, trying to teach people the importance of using
the right oil.
Yes.
You make oils yourself, lubricants yourself.
Yeah, we make through the Ola Energy. We bring in our raw materials, we design the product, they manufacture for us. It's called toll blending arrangement. So a lot of people are under toll blending arrangement, and of course we are satisfied. We co-load with them the material we bring in. They have sophisticated laboratories to make sure that the products that we make are to the international standards. We give them formulations. I work on my formulations with some of the top additive suppliers, Afton and Chevron. So we make oil to international standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mohamed, thank you very much for joining us today. I think it was a very good introduction to a conversation that you should come back and we keep having.
My
in
pleasure.
terms of even lobbying to have regulations in place, lobbying to have the taxes discussed and waived and removed, and most importantly, consumer awareness.
Yes.
Mohamed Baraka is the chairman of the Lubricant Task Force at the Petroleum Institute of East Africa. We've been talking about the importance of lubricants and having quality lubricants in the